So if you weren't here with us yesterday and you are interested in, and you don't want to go through yesterday's lab, you can go into reports and find lab 1 solution, and that's where we'll be picking up from. With that being said, let's jump into the lab. All right, so today we'll be going over data modeling and exploration. In this section, we'll learn about key parts of the Power BI desktop, and we will model and explore data and start to build some visuals. So we'll start from the actual Power BI screen. Yesterday, we were mainly in Power Query, which is kind of like a SQL generator. This is like a secondary Power BI view. Now, the main view that you're actually going to see in Power BI is this view, which is generally where you'll have access to your data, you'll have access to modeling, you'll have this main space for building out your visuals, and you'll have all these different tools at the top. So let's kind of review what the main tabs are. So at the top of the page, you'll see a home tab where the most common operations you perform are available. Next to it, you have the Insert tab. This allows you to insert shapes, text box, and new visuals. The next is the Modeling tab, which enables additional data modeling capabilities like adding custom columns, measures, and tables. The View tab has options for formatting this page layout. And the Help tab provides self-help options like guided learning, trading videos, and links to online communities, partner showcases, and consulting services. On the left-hand side of the window, you'll have 3 icons: Report, Data, and Model. So these 3 right here. The center white space of the canvas is where you'll be creating visuals. Here you have the Filter pane, where you can insert fields to filter on different things. Next to it, you have the Visualizations pane, which is how you'll select the kind of visual you want to use, as well as different formatting options for those visuals. And next to it, you'll have the Fields pane, which is where you'll see anything that we generated from Power Query. The different tables that you loaded will show up here, as well as if you open them up, the different attributes or fields from each table will show below them. In addition to attributes and fields, you'll also get to see measures that you generate per table. Measures are like aggregate functions such as the sum of a certain column or the average of a certain column. So let's start by clicking. Let's close these up really quick. And let's click on let's open up sales. And let's go up and down and let's go to the data icon here on the left. And then let's go to sales. And at the bottom here, you'll see that it's 3,181,000 rows. And if you scroll up and down, you can actually, and do the toolbar, you can see how fast Power BI is actually able to load all 3 million rows. If you tried this in Excel, you probably know that Excel generally crashes when you do this kind of thing. And this is one of the reasons Power BI is so powerful, is it's able to load millions and millions of rows into memory. I have projects that are in like 30, 40 million rows. And it works pretty fine once you load it into memory. Yes, the Power Query load takes some time, but it's pretty useful for just exploring data at that level. Next, let's click on the model icon underneath that data icon, and you'll see our different tables. We have the manufacturer, which feeds into the product, which feeds into the sales. You'll see that these tables have imported along with the relationships. That Power BI automatically infers relationships between tables. A relationship is created between the sales and product table using the product ID column. So if we highlight this, we can see that product ID. A relationship is created between the product and manufacturer table using the manufacturer ID column. And here we can see manufacturer ID is highlighted. Power BI supports multiple types of relationships: one-to-many, one-to-one, and many-to-many. In this lab, we'll be using the one-to-many type of relationship, the most common type of relationship, and generally what you want to drive towards in data modeling. We won't go over too much about data modeling, but if you are interested, we eventually will put up a course on advanced data modeling or intermediate data modeling. Or if you have any questions about it, just reach out. This means for a one-to-many type relationship, as we see here, you see this one, and this star is generally many. Um, this means that one of the tables involved in the relationship should have a unique set of values. So the manufacturer ID here is unique. There's only one manufacturer ID per row in the column, or per column. And it will repeat in the product table. So to kind of explain that, if we go to manufacturer and we go to manufacturer ID, you'll see that each one is unique, right? Like there's no repeats here. But if we go to that product and we look at the manufacturer, you will see that 1 repeats itself, 8 repeats itself. And so that's really what that one-to-many is alluding to. And that's generally how you want to structure your tables if you can. You can also close these to kind of open up more space. You can, at this bar at the bottom, you can zoom in, zoom out to kind of see. And then if you press this button, fit to screen, it's going to fit based on how you fit things. Generally, things are kind of horizontal in your screen. So I try to make my models kind of horizontal so that when they fit, it'll be as big as possible. All right, so that's it for the basics of kind of what we have to work with. So let's go start with some data exploration. Let's click on the report icon at the top left icon, and let's click clustered column chart in the visualization section. So that's clustered bar chart. We want clustered column chart, the fourth one. From the field section, let's expand the geography table and click the checkbox next to the country field. And then from the field section, let's expand the sales table and then click the checkbox next to the revenue field. Resize the visual by dragging on the edges. You can either do the sides or you can do the corners. Notice that the revenue of each country is the same, and that's a little suspicious. Now we need to create a relationship between sales and geography table in order so that sales is actually different per different geographical region. So let's click on the model icon, the one on the left. And remember how we did those zip codes? What we're going to do is we're going to connect the zip column from sales with the zip column from geography. You can do this by dragging the zip column and matching it to the zip column. You'll notice the create relationship dialog opens with a warning message at the bottom stating the relationship has a many-to-many cardinality, and we were trying to get that one-to-many if you remember. The reason for the warning is that we don't have unique zip values in the geography table. This is because multiple countries have the same zip code. Let's concatenate the zip and country columns to create a unique value. So click cancel on the create relationship dialog box. We need to create a new column in both geography table and the sales table that combines zip and country. So let's start by creating a new column in the sales table. Let's click on the report icon, top left. And then in the field section, click on the ellipses next to sales and click new column. You'll see a formula bar appear at the top. Now we need to combine the zip and country columns into a new column called zip country, separated by a comma. To create this column called zip country, type the following calculation in this editor. So what we're going to do is we're going to create zip country. It's very much like Excel. Equals sales, zip, and quotes, comma, quotes, and sales and country. I'll leave that up there for a little bit so y'all can see it. Once you're done entering the formula, press enter or click the check mark next to the formula. You'll notice that IntelliSense appears guiding you to choose the correct column. The language you use to create this new column is called Data Analysis Expression, or DAX. We are connecting columns, zip and country, in each row by using the and symbol. The icon with the FX near the new column, zip country, once we create it, you'll see it will show up down here under, in this case, sales. You'll see this FX here. Near the icon with the FX near the new column, zip country, indicates that you have a column containing an expression, also referred to as a calculated column. An alternative way of adding a new column is selecting the table, click Table Tools, and then click New Column or Modeling, and then click New Column. So what they're talking about is if you click Sales, and then you go to up here and you go to Data and Drill, sorry, Home, Modeling, or Table Tools. Sorry, if you click on the table, you will then be allowed to have Table Tools. Click on Table Tools, and then you can click New Column, and that formula bar will appear. Similarly, we're going to do the same thing for geography. So we're going to click on the geography table, and this time we'll use that. We're going to reach it through modeling, not table tools. So if you click modeling, you'll also see new column here. And that formula bar will appear. And so we're going to do basically the same equation, but this time instead of sales zip and sales country, we're going to use geography zip and geography country. So geography zip and quotes, comma, quotes, and geography country. And I'll leave that up there for a second. You're done, press enter or the check mark, and it will load and you'll see a new zip country column here. The final step is to create a relationship between the two tables using the newly created zip country columns in each of these tables. Click on the model icon in the left panel to navigate to the relationship view. Drag the zip country field from the sales table and connect it to the zip country field in the geography table. So if you scroll all the way down to sales and in geography, you'll find zip country, and you just match those two up and you'll see we have this nice one-to-many now. We don't get that error message that shows up. Again, that number 1 represents the one, and the star represents the many, so it's that one-to-many because of the arrow. Now let's click on the report icon, and you'll see our visual has changed simply by creating a relationship. It's no longer the same value for every country, but rather each country now has its correct amount of revenue. By default, the chart is sorted by revenue. We can change this if we click on the visual and then we click on the 3 ellipses at the top, and maybe we want to sort by manufacturer or sort by country. And you can just select it there. So the way you can know in advance without creating a relationship that the value is unique is if, let's say, we go to the manufacturer table. Obviously, you can see that it's unique because there's only a few values, but what if you have values that go all the way down the page? Well, if you click this, you'll see that it says 14 rows and then 14 distinct values. So if there's 14 rows and each one is distinct, then each one is indeed unique. Now let's do this same exercise with the sales for that, for the product. And as you can see, there's a lot of different products. There's 2,400 products. We can't do it by just eyeing it. But if we go to the manufacturer ID, I have 2,412 rows, but only 14 distinct values. So we know that, of those 14 values, they have to repeat a certain amount of times until we get to 2,400 rows. So that's generally how you can check your uniqueness pretty quickly. And because Power BI can load in every row into memory, you're able to see that simply. Like if we go to sales and we look at product ID, for example, you can see it's going to go over all 3 million rows, and over those 3 million rows, it basically knows instantaneously that only 1,000 of them are distinct. Now, there are situations where the way you model your data is not going to allow you to have a distinct value, and you might not be able to do a clean one-to-many relationship. It is okay to do a many-to-many relationship, but you really should like be conscious of the effects of that, like what that means and how that's going to impact your data, and if that's what you really want. But I do think that gets a little bit into data modeling. And I'll provide some resources at the end if you guys are interested in data modeling, data design, etc. Um, Alrighty, let's get back. So, uh, geography table generally will have, well, maybe you guys can answer this. If we look at the geography table, um, which values in the geography table right now are distinct? If we look at zip, we have, 176, but only 159. We look at city, we have 176, but only 90,000. State, only 186 distinct. We're looking where these two values are equal, right? So that each row is its own distinct value. So if we keep going, we end up finding that that zip country indeed has 176, 929, 176, 929. So each row in zip country is distinct and unique. Versus sales, where we did that same zip country, we still have 3 million rows, but only 31,000 are distinct. So yes, you are correct. All right, so let's start working on another visual. From the fields section, let's expand the manufacturer table. And then let's drag the manufacturer column, not the ID, but the manufacturer, to the legend in our current visual. And you'll see that we've split up our bar chart into multiple different bars based on manufacturer. While you have the chart selected, let's click on the clustered column bar chart. And then let's change that to a stacked column. Not 100%, but just the stacked column chart. And you'll see instead of them kind of being in a little group and clustered together, they're stacked on top of each other. And this gives us a good view of all the sales in the USA. How did it break down by manufacturer? As opposed to if we look at it this way, it's kind of hard to see, we can see them relatively, but we can't see the total USA sales as well. And then let's sort this by revenue again, just so it's a little cleaner. So in the filter pane, let's open this up now. Let's expand manufacturer. You'll see that we have 3 sections: filter on this visual, filter on this page, and filter on all pages. When you have a visual selected, filter on this visual will automatically put in the different fields that you have in the visual. And then let's switch basic. So the filtering type, let's switch that to top N. Let's put a 5 for top 5. And value, let's organize them by revenue. So let's get the top 5 manufacturers by revenue, and let's click apply filter. And you'll see it filtered those manufacturers down to just the biggest contributors overall. Let's add some labels to our visual. And so if we go to the format section of the visual, we can then go to the data labels section and just flip this on, and we'll get some new data labels going. But for now, just showing you that option. Let's keep them off. It's a little bit cleaner without them. So in order to get rid of this filter, you can just hit the little eraser button at the top of the manufacturer top 5 by revenue, and you'll see those other manufacturers will come back. So let's do this a different way than filtering in this section, which is let's say that we had multiple visuals, we'd have to do this for every single visual. But maybe we want to kind of use um, certain, we want to isolate the top 5 manufacturers or our top competitors and use them on the fly for various different visuals. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the manufacturer table, and we're going to click on the uh, right click on the manufacturer field name, and we're going to click new group. A dialog box, and you'll see we have these ungrouped values and these groups and members. In the ungrouped value section, using the control key, so hold control down and let's click Aliki, Curus, Natura, Imperium. Notice a new group is added in the groups and members section. Double click the newly created group and rename it to top competitors. So let's double click this name, call it top competitors. Let's click on Van Arsdal, which is our company, and let's click group, and let's just leave it as Van Arsdal. And then there's a little button at the bottom called include other groups. So that's going to take all the ungrouped values and create another other group. Once you're done with that, let's click OK. So once we're done with that, let's go back to our visual. Click on the field section. Let's click on the X next to manufacturer in the legend section. This is going to get rid of the legend and just turn it back into a regular bar chart. Instead, we're going to drag that manufacturer groups into the legend section. And you'll see we now have those 3 groups that we did: top competitors, Van Arsdal, and other. Hover over one of the columns and right click. So let's hover over USA and let's right click it. And let's click Show as Table. You will now be in focus mode with the chart displayed on top and the data displayed below. Notice that Van Arsdal has a large percentage of the Australian market. Use the icon in the top right corner to switch to a vertical layout. In this layout, you view the chart on the left panel and the data on the right panel. Once you're done with that, click back to report to go back to the report canvas. Now let's create a revenue by manufacturer visual. Click on the white space in the canvas. From the field section, click on the checkbox next to the revenue field in the sales section, or sales table. From the field section, click the checkbox next to the manufacturer field in the manufacturer table. From the visualization section, let's click on the tree map visual. So it's if we go to the 3rd row on the far right, you'll see kind of this boxy looking thing. And if you hover over it, it should say tree map. Again, you can resize by moving the arrows around. We now have revenue by manufacturer. Let's now turn our attention to the interaction between the stacked column chart and the tree map visuals. In the tree map, click the Van Arsdal, this big green square, and notice that the stacked column chart is now filtered. Like if we unclick it, it'll be dark, but if we do this, it's gonna just leave the Van Arsdal dark and the other ones will be grayed out. This confirms that Van Arsdal has the largest percentage of the Australian market. To remove the filter, click the Van Arsdal again. This interaction between visuals is called cross-filtering. Previously, we added a top 5 visual level filter. Now let's add a filter to the page level. So we are working with the top competitors in Van Arsdal and filter out the other manufacturers. Page level filters apply to all visuals on a page or tab. Visual level filters apply only to a visual. Ensure that the filter pane is extended or open. From the field section, drag the manufacturer groups. From the manufacturer table to the filter on this page and group in filter on this page. Let's click on top competitors and Van Arsdal. Now let's add a visual that provides sales information over time. Begin by clicking on the white space in the canvas. Let's maybe lower this a little bit. Click on the white space in the canvas. You shouldn't have a visual selected. And then let's click the checkbox next to the date field in sales table. Notice that a date hierarchy is created here in the field section. Click the checkbox next to the revenue section, or revenue in the sales table. Notice that a clustered column chart is created. Also notice in the axis section, a date hierarchy is created. There are arrows on the top bar of the chart which are used to navigate through the hierarchy. So you have this up arrow, this down arrow, the double down arrow, and the forked hierarchy or forked down arrow here. Click on the Australia column in the revenue by country visual. So we're going to click on this Australia column. Or if you click on the name, you can select the whole column. With the revenue by country visual selected, from the visual, click Format, and then click Edit Interactions. Notice on the top right of the other two visuals, new icons with the highlight is selected. Right, so you have this one, highlight and filter. Let's click on the filter icon instead of highlight for both visuals. We might have to move this up to see the icon on this one. So if we click again, revenue by country, you'll see that you have these icons. We're going to turn on filter for this one. Now let's click the revenue by year and notice we have icons for these two, but they're still set to highlight. Let's click the filter icon for these two as well. Last, let's do revenue by manufacturer, and you'll see those icons. Let's switch these to filter as well. So once you're done with that, go back to format and click edit interactions to get rid of those icons in that toggle. So now when we click on the Van Arsdal in the revenue by manufacturer, you'll see that it not only it doesn't highlight, but rather it just gets rid of the other sections and only shows us Van Arsdal data. Similarly, for the years, if we click on this, it docks the revenue so that we only see Van Arsdal revenue. We've already noticed that Van Arsdal has a large share of market in Australia. Let's see how Van Arsdal has done over time in Australia. Click on the revenue by country and manufacturer groups chart and remove manufacturer groups from the legend. So revenue by country manufacturer, we're going to get rid of manufacturer groups. Click on the Van Arsdal in the revenue by manufacturer visual. So revenue by manufacturer, let's click Van Arsdal. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to hold control and we're going to click the Australia column in the revenue by country visual. So now you'll see we have Van Arsdal and Australia selected. And now revenue by year is really showing us how Van Arsdal did in Australia over time. Let's click on the down arrow on the top of the revenue by year visual. This enables drill down capability. So here we're going to click on this single down arrow and it's going to toggle on the drill down capability. And let's click on 2019 column in the revenue by year visual. So just click on 2019. Because we have that toggled on, we now see 2019 Q1 through Q4 and how Van Arsdal in Australia. What we see is we see a big spike in Q4. Let's dig a little bit further. Click on the double arrow icon on the top of the revenue by year visual. This drill downs to the next level of the hierarchy, which is month. So we're going to click the second double down arrow. And since we already had 2019 selected from the previous toggle, we're really looking at January through December for 2019. And what we can see is in Q4, it was really October and somewhat September really driving Q4. To kind of go back up to the quarter level, we simply click the up arrow. If we click on it again, it'll go up to the year level again. Now, if we click on the split arrow icon, it's going to show us all of the different quarters, or that next level down, which is quarter, but also it's going to do it by year, as opposed to, you'll see we have more columns now. If we did it again, we would get it by month, and it's going to keep those quarters as well. There's so much information that there will be a scroll bar at the bottom now where we'd have to scroll to see between 2017 and 2019. Apologies, but I actually messed up the recording for part 2 of Lab 2, so I'll be reviewing it right now. So let's start where we picked off. Now that we've explored the data, let's add a slicer so we can filter by the manufacturers. Click on the white space on the canvas, and from the field section, click the checkbox next to the manufacturer field. Now, from the visualization section, let's click on the slicer visual. Here you'll see a list of manufacturers. Click on the Van Arsdale and notice that all the visuals are filtered based on your selection. Hover over the top right corner of the visual and click on the down arrow. Notice you have the option to change the slicer from a list to a dropdown. So let's change it to a dropdown. Now let's select Van Arsdale again. Confirm that the top competitors in Van Arsdale are selected in the manufacturers group filter in the filters pane. And note that there is a box for filter on all pages, as well as filter on this page and filter on this visual. If you have duplicate pages, this is how you sync a filter for the whole file. Now let's use the manufacturer slicer to analyze one manufacturer at a time. Begin by clicking on the revenue by manufacturer tree map visual. From the visualization section, click on the card visual. This with the 1, 2, 3 here, it says card. The card visual gives us the revenue as we filter and cross-filter the visuals. Notice that all key dimensions are in this table with related attributes except for date. For example, product attributes are in the product table. Manufacturer details are in the manufacturer table, and geography details are in the geography table. However, the only one that we don't have is date. So we're going to create a date table using table tools. Navigate to the data view by clicking on the data icon in the left panel. From the ribbon, click on Table Tools, and then click on New Table. Notice that a new table is created in the Field section. On the right, in that a formula bar opens. Enter the formula as follows. Date equals calendar, date 2012, 1/1/2, date 2019, 12/31. Once you're done, go ahead and click the check mark, and a date table with a date column is created. We are using two DAX functions, the calendar function, which takes the start date and the end date, and then we are using the date function to provide those dates, which takes the year, the month, and the date, and the week. Sorry, the year, the month, and the date. For this lab, we will create dates from 2012 to 2019. We can also add more fields like year, month, week, etc. to this table by using DAX functions. Notice that the date field is of the type date/time. Let's change it to the date data type. From the ribbon, click on Column Tools, click on Data Type, and change this to date. Next, we need to create a relationship between the newly created date table and the sales table. From the ribbon, click on Column Tools, then Manage Relationships, and a Manage Relationship dialog box will open. Go ahead and click the New button, and a Create Relationship dialog box will open. Click Date from the top drop-down menu, select Date, and then let's click Sales from the second drop-down, and click Date as well. And we should get a one-to-many relationship, and then go ahead and click OK to create the relationship. And go ahead and click Close. Now, if we navigate to that model section, we will see a relationship between date and sales. Maybe we can move these around so it's a little cleaner. Now let's navigate to the report view. Oh, I meant to turn this one into the tree map visual. So let's turn this into card. Let's turn this one back into our this, and then just to show, we'll put the sales date back in here. And so remember before our date visual was nicely separated into years, but now it's been expanded to the day level. This is because we created a relationship, and what happens is that automatic hierarchy from the date disappears as soon as we connect it to a new date hierarchy. So from the access, we're going to remove that date visual from the sales table, and instead we are going to add the date from the date table. You'll see we get those nice years again, and we have that automatic hierarchy coming from there. Since there are two date fields, it may be confusing to know which one to use. To accommodate this, let's hide the date field in the sales table. From the field section, click on the ellipses next to the date field in the sales table, and then click hide. In the same way, we're going to hide country ID, product ID, and zip country. Hide country, hide product ID, hide zip, and zip country, all from the sales table because they have references in other tables. Now let's click on the revenue by country visual. And from the field section, let's drag the state field. Let's drag the state field into the visual from the geography table. And then below that, let's drag the district and put that below state. Make sure that Van Arsdale is selected in the manufacturer slicer. Enable drill down mode by clicking the down arrow on the revenue by country visual. Click Australia to drill down to the state level. From the revenue by year visual, click 2019 and notice what happens to the revenue by country and state visual. Now drill up to the country level. Disable drill down mode by clicking the down arrow again. Now let's analyze the data by product. We'll start by creating a product hierarchy. From the field section, click on the ellipses next to the category field in the product table. And we're going to click New Hierarchy. And you'll see that a new hierarchy is created called Category Hierarchy. Let's change this to Product Hierarchy. So simply double click on the name and relabel as Product Hierarchy. Now we need to add some fields into our product hierarchy. If we open it up, we'll see that it only contains category. So we also want to add segment. So we're going to go to segment, click on the ellipses, and we're going to click add to hierarchy and add to product hierarchy. Similarly, we're going to go to product. We're going to do add to hierarchy and then product hierarchy. We've now created a product hierarchy with the priority of category, segment, and then product. Let's click on the white space in the canvas. And from the visualization section, click clustered bar chart. This one. From the field section, expand the product table and click on the checkbox next to product hierarchy. Notice that the whole hierarchy is selected, and from the field section, we're going to expand sales and we're going to drag that revenue into the values section. Ensure that Australia and 2019 are selected. Now let's edit the interactions for the new chart. Click on the Format tab and click Edit Interactions. So for every chart, we should have filter selected instead of highlight. Same with the new one that we just added. So now if we select 2019 in Australia, we're filtering by 2019 Australia. So we can see here. Now let's enable drill down mode on the revenue by category field by clicking the down arrow. And let's click on urban. In the revenue by country visual, drill up to the country level Australia and disable drill down. Now let's again click Australia here and let's control click 2019. Notice that sales in the extreme category are higher than the convenience and moderation segments. Let's investigate further. Click the down arrow at the top of the revenue by country visual to enable drill down mode. Click Australia to look at the state level. And click the 2019 again. Now let's control click the extreme segment in the revenue by category and segment visual. And notice that there is no significant spike by state. Let's go back up to remove that selection. And let's drill up to the category level in the revenue by category visual. Let's disable drill mode by clicking on the down arrow again. And let's drill up to the country in revenue by country and state visual. So now that we're back at the top, let's add a matrix visual so we can view the data in rows and columns, and we can apply conditional formatting to the matrix visual to highlight the outliers. Click on the revenue by category clustered bar chart and change it to a matrix visual. Matrix visual, there's two tables. One with the colored blue is the matrix. Now we can click on the plus sign in urban to drill down, see what's below it. Now let's add a percent of the total field. This will give us a better perspective. Navigate away from the format section to the fields pane. From the fields section, let's drag revenue into the matrices. It will look like you have revenue twice in the field section. Click the arrow next to the newly added revenue field and hover over show value as, and then we're going to click percent of grand total. Now drill up to the category level and enable drill mode to the revenue by category visual. And let's click on urban. Make sure you have Australia and 2019 selected. And notice that the extreme segment accounts for 40.53% of total sales within the urban section. Let's click on 2019 here to remove that filter. And we'll see that it drops down to 34%. Now let's drill down to the extreme segment and figure out if a product stands out. Click extreme to drill down to the product level and resize the visual as needed. Let's hover over the visual or click on the ellipses and hover over, and we'll do sort by, and we want to sort by percent grand total revenue. And let's sort descending. We can now see the top products. In the revenue by year visual, let's click on that 2019. We're already in Australia. And notice that UE4 and has nearly 7% of the grand total and has a big spike. In the revenue by year visual, click the 2019 column to remove the filter. Earlier, we created a calculated column named zip country. Now we're going to create a percent growth measure so we can compare sales over time. We're going to do this in 2 steps. But first, what's the difference between a measure and a calculated column? A calculated column is evaluated row by row. So if I were to write a calculated column against the sales table, it would have, like zip country, it does it every row gets evaluated. A measure is used when we want to aggregate values from many rows in the table. So in the field section, let's click on the sales table. And from the ribbon, click Table Tools, and then New Measure. And a formula bar will open. And we're going to type the following formula for PY sales equals calculate sum of sales revenue. And we're going to use same period last year on the new date table that we created and on the date column. And that with 2 ending parentheses. I'll leave that up there for a second so you can see. Once you're done with that, we're going to click on the checkbox next to the formula bar. And you'll be able to see PY sales now shows up as a measure, but it doesn't show as a new column. Remember, this is evaluated in aggregate, not row by row. Let's create another measure. In the field section, again, hover over the sales table and click on the ellipses in the right corner and click on New Measure, and it'll do the same as the table tools. This time we're going to do the percent growth, and this is equal to divide the numerator, which is sum of sales revenue, over, minus PY sales, over, in this case, we separate them with a comma, over the original, which is PY sales, and ending parenthesis, and we'll have a new measure for percent growth. Click the check mark or enter when you, next to the formula bar, and you'll see percent growth in the sales table. Now let's go back to our report and let's click on the matrices visual. In the field section, now let's click on that PY sales, the check mark here, and the percent growth to drag them into the table. And maybe we want to format these a little bit better. So from the ribbon, for percent growth field, click on format or measure tools, format, and then percentage, or you can hit the little percent here. Similarly, for the PY sales, click measure tools, format, and then currency if it's not already selected. We can also do the same for revenue. Make sure that it's currency. Ensure that Australia is selected in the revenue by year visual. Okay, and control click the 2019 column. Notice that the Maximus UE04 has 157 or almost 158% growth compared to last year. And that's probably why there's that big spike in 2019 in the urban and extreme segments. Is probably from this product alone. Well, we can also see that some of that growth, if we sort here, we have the UE, the UE11, and this 1 and 9 are big contributors as well. So that's it for Lab 2 Part 2.